Okay, day 116, the DynCorp harvest. One of the ways to trace rat lines, one of the ways to fight against this kind of crime, the sex trafficking and the drug trafficking and the child trafficking and the organ harvesting, is the information, tracking the information of how these things happen. And that's where Promise and Palantir come in. For instance, if I'm trying to uncover this overthrow of Gaddafi and Assad, I could track Hillary Clinton sending money through the foundation to Sid Blumenthal, which is then forwarded from his account to the Muslim Brotherhood, and then Sid Blumenthal sending money to General Grange here as well. And that's what Promise did. Promise linked all the bank accounts, the people to all the bank accounts, and then tied in the transaction list from the international and domestic money transfers. So that was kind of Promise's great claim to fame. The other thing Promise did was it looked into every country's intelligence system to see who they thought the bad guys were. And instead of going and arresting the bad guys and putting them in jail or at least watching them, Sid hired them. So it's not really, the tracking software is not really, doesn't really fight crime, or it doesn't really, whoever's using it, whoever's driving the software, is my point, is going to be how the software is used. In this case, I'm going to use it to collect my Awan brothers here, my three Muslim brothers with the stingers and the sarin gas, and we're going to topple some countries, and we're going to do some child trafficking, and we're going to do some organ harvesting if we're talking about Libya and Syria. So people ask me, what's Palantir? How did that improve things, or why are people going to Palantir? And the reason is, what Palantir adds is kind of what they call object-oriented, meaning that this person in the database carries information with it real time, that's updated real time. So for instance, I know his location from satellites, I know his location from cell phones, from triangulation from cell phones, from human intelligence. So I got the location. I also know all of his bank accounts. I also know all of his social media. I also know all of his friends. I have all of his email, all that stuff that Snowden added. So basically all the stuff that Snowden adds, which allows you to do a lot of really interesting things. For instance, being able to put together a network of people and saying, oh, all these are the guys in Muslim Brotherhood that General Grange hired to topple Libya. So that's the power of that. You need something that powerful. We do it here informally, the old yarn and pins method that they used to do in crime and intelligence briefing rooms. But it really helps to have this automated software to pull all these things together. It's like pulling Hercule Poirot, pulling all the suspects into one room. It's a lot easier to solve the crime if you get all the pictures on one page. So I wanted to give you an update on Eric Braverman. So Eric Braverman here at the Google Foundation is a part of this Polaris. And Polaris.org is a group that is going into tackling this problem here, this child trafficking. So they're not really focused on the organ harvesting, they're focused on the child trafficking. I almost think the child trafficking, believe it or not, is a cover for the organ harvesting, because organ harvesting is so profitable. And I know that's terrible to say, but you can see here that Palantir is one of the partners. And then that Latham Watkins is a DC law firm, and you'll see other folks, kind of shard this a little bit. But the big one is Google, okay? So this is basically the Clinton Foundation just moving over through Eric Braverman and the Google Foundation. They just changed the names with Polaris. The key here is not to fall for it again, the social justice cover. It's the enforcement is not going to come from the same group that was taking advantage of people in Libya and Syria, trafficking organs and trafficking kids down to the Muslim, to the Saudi sheiks. That's not the person you want to put in charge. And so they're bringing forward Ashton Kutcher, and he's going to be the new face of this. Peter Thiel has kind of been outed as this social justice face, and so he's kind of moving out, and they're moving Ashton Kutcher in. And one of the foundations he has here with his wife, and they almost can't keep a straight face when they do this social justice thing. He blew a kiss to McCain. I mean, the theatrics are a little bit extreme. But anyway, they have this foundation called Thorn, since they divorced, I think, his previous wife, Demi Moore. But Thorne is going to be the new front for Palantir. He basically said, DHS came to me because, even the trillions that we've spent on DHS, they were at the end of their rope. They needed to come to me with Thorne. It's basically just a front for Palantir. So what I'm trying to say is, if you change the front sign of the business, it's still the business. You still go by the Better Business reviews. It's not, because there's a new logo, that's not how you make your judgment. And really, this is the kind of guy you want doing your rat lines, because he's been there. General Flynn's been in DIA. He's seen all these rat lines. So he knows where the bones are buried. He knows right where to go. He knows where the U.S. has been, he knows where ISIS has been tipped off on U.S. raids so that we end up blowing up rocks rather than blowing up terrorists. So this one, when we send an expensive missile, we want to make sure that we get the Awan brothers in that strike. And if you keep tipping people off like we did in Yemen, we're not going to be successful. So here's what I'm saying is, after these transcripts come out about General Flynn, and let's say he said we're going to sell 20% of our uranium to Russia. Okay, great. Through Frank Giustra, let's say, of Giustra Enterprises. Great. Okay, now we know what he said. Let's bring him back in and reinstate him, because he's the guy that you want fighting your rat lines. And, the whole thing about not giving all the information to the vice president, well, he felt like he had a mission that only the president, it was a mission that was secret enough that only the president could know. That's my explanation here. So I really think if you want to, he also outed these Venezuelan guys. And the way to stop these traffics, the easiest way, the trafficking networks, is to stop the money. If he identifies, if Flynn in 1 week could almost not bring it all to a halt, but he knows where the bones are buried, and he could be very effective in 1 week. A lot of people say he was outed because he stopped the two guys in the Venezuelan ring. Okay, that's all for this episode.